In this basement, we definitely won't get caught. Exactly. Thank you for making all this room for me. I heard a young woman's voice that seemed like it could end with a heart stamp, and unmistakably, Tom's voice. I was speechless. What does this mean? Before I could even begin to sort out my confused thoughts, an indecent cry from the woman echoed down the hallway. No way. That can't be happening. I had a bad feeling for a while, but actually encountering the scene, I realized I was more shocked than I thought. I love you the most. Tom. Me too. Their voices whispering love sounded as if their union was fated. In the basement of this new house, how could I have ever guessed that Tom and some unknown woman were in the midst of making out? I clasped my trembling hands tightly in front of my chest and thought in circles in my head about what I should do. My name is Julie Smith. I'm 31 years old and work at a web development company. I've always liked working with computers since I was a kid and was overjoyed when I got the job at the web development company I admired. The company itself is still young, only 20 years since its founding, and many of my coworkers are around my age. Because of this, the workplace is always lively, and I spend my days busy but enjoyable. I've achieved my ideal career and companions. As for my private life, I married a man 2 years older, Tom Smith, a year ago. I met Tom at a matchmaking party 3 years ago, and after 2 years of dating, we decided to get married. For me, who was anxious to get married in my late 20s, he seemed like a savior who appeared out of nowhere. Currently, we live in a rental apartment, but we've recently started talking about buying a house. Buying a house just a year into marriage seems quick, but Tom apparently wanted to own a home as soon as possible after turning 30. When I asked why he felt that way, he brought up his childhood home. Tom's family is wealthy. His house, which has one of the largest lots in an area known as an upscale residential area, is so nice and luxurious both on the outside and inside that you might fall in love with it at first sight. Whenever we talk about our future home, I always think of my in-laws' house. So, he also wants a home similar to where he grew up as soon as possible. The reason Tom's family is so wealthy is that his father, my father-in-law, is the CEO of a major trading company, Smith Trading Company. With an average employee annual income being around $200,000 a year at Smith Trading, it's not hard to imagine my father-in-law's income is pretty high. While I can't imagine the exact amount, at least Tom has never had to struggle in his life. At best, he is a good-natured young man. At worst, the way you say it, he grew up in a greenhouse. Of course, not all children from wealthy families are like that. It's just something I felt from Tom's remarks here and there. If things go as planned, Tom will be the next president of Smith Trading. The reason a scion of a major corporation would attend a matchmaking party is, as I mentioned before, Tom has a bit of a habit of bragging about his family's wealth through his actions and words. However, for me, that didn't bother me much. I've always been clumsy at love, and when I was uncertain whether I could ever experience romance and get married, I was glad I could marry Tom, with whom I hit it off. So, I've spent a somewhat happy newlywed life for a year with Tom, who can be a bit selfish at the age of 30. My in-laws are sensible people and treat me, a stranger, with respect. I make an effort too, but if I think of it as gaining new family members, occasional interactions with my in-laws weren't a burden. The first time we talked about buying our own home was about 3 months into our marriage. I've been thinking about getting our own place. What do you think? Our own home? That's quite soon, but it's been your dream, right? If that's what you want, I'm all for it. Since Tom had talked about his dream of building a home several times, I was able to smoothly agree with his suggestion at that time. Thanks. Then I'll get in touch with a contractor my dad knows right away. I think they'll prioritize us. Sure, I'll leave it to you. I responded eagerly to Tom, who was excited to proceed with the arrangements. But at that time, I didn't yet know that buying this dream home of Tom's would lead to such an incident. As a condition for buying the home, I made one proposal to Tom. Considering our salaries, let's split the mortgage 60/40 between you and me. Is that okay? When I asked Tom, he nodded with a smile, of course. In reality, considering our incomes, it would be more proportionate if Tom paid more, but as a working woman, I wanted to take responsibility for the mortgage repayment, so I decided on this ratio. However, to avoid complications later on, we decided the mortgage would be in Tom's name only. After all, it made sense to put it under the name of the future president of Smith Trading, who is also currently an active employee. Tom, seemingly not too interested in the mortgage discussion, quickly moved on to talk about the exterior and layout of the house. Let's make the staircase from the living room to the second floor spiral. Oh, and I want a high ceiling for the sense of openness it brings. Plus, building up to 3 floors would unnecessarily increase costs like exterior painting, so I want to make a basement. What do you think? A basement? The idea of having a basement in our home was unfamiliar to me, and I hesitated for a moment. Yeah. The basement is, well, a room to use just in case. For now, I'm thinking of it as a bedroom, but if the top floor is better for that, we'll do it. Even if we don't have any use for it, we can turn it into storage so we won't have trouble with space. If you're that set on having a basement, I'm fine with it. Although I felt a bit uneasy about Tom's insistence on the basement, I couldn't argue, thinking he must have his reasons. I might be in the minority of women who don't particularly enjoy planning a layout from scratch. That's why I also hoped Tom would make some decisions. Plus, listening to him, having a basement didn't seem like a bad idea after all. Cleaning it might be more work, but the extra storage space seemed worth it. Tom, getting my approval for the basement, seemed to sparkle more in his eyes than before. It seemed he really wanted that basement. I even began to think it was cool how much Tom cared about our house. Tom continued to plan our home's layout through trial and error. He visited the contractor numerous times, discussing our new home. My work sometimes required me to work on weekends, so there were days I couldn't accompany Tom to the contractor. However, Tom didn't seem to mind my absence at the meetings at all. Rather, maybe because everything was going his way, he always returned from the contractor with a smile on his face. How was the meeting? Everything's going smoothly. Oh, I can't wait for our home to be built. Tom looked blissful, eagerly anticipating our home's completion. Months passed, and our new home was finally completed. It really seems like the contractor prioritized Tom's requests and worked hard for us. I'm so grateful to them. The finished home was a 2-story house with chic black walls, standing proudly. Although I had seen it under construction several times, seeing the completed house made even me, who wasn't too particular about our home, excited. Tom lovingly gazed at the entire house, capturing it on his smartphone camera. But as if timed with our new home's completion, Tom started coming home late. The busy seasons finally hit. Sorry, but I won't need dinner for a while. Watching him rub his hands together and apologize, I could only nod, understanding he must be really busy with work. After all, Tom is the heir to Smith Trading. On top of his regular duties, he must be getting schooled by his father, the president, on the ins and outs of the entire company. I understand. Just don't overdo it, okay? My job is busy too, but not as much as Tom's. I thought about keeping the house spotless so that it's always welcoming whenever he comes home, considering how hard Tom works. True to what he had told me, Tom started coming home late from that day on. On the rare occasions he did come home early, he'd spend his time looking at furniture and appliances for our new home on his smartphone, but something about it made me pause. Hey, don't you think this bed and these shelves would be perfect for our new home? He showed me pictures of furniture excitedly, but they featured a bed and shelves way too large for just the two of us, something we'd surely have no use for. Neither Tom nor I are the type to hoard things, so it was questionable whether we needed such large storage. It's nice, but do we really need something so big? When I expressed my doubts, Tom immediately looked displeased. What if our family grows someday? It's better to have it larger, right? I see. He meant for when we have children. That's when I realized we hadn't been intimate since Tom started talking about adding a basement to our new home. It's strange for a newlywed couple to go months without intimacy. I hadn't thought much of it until then, but once I noticed, it increasingly weighed on my mind. That night, I decided to bring up our lack of intimacy recently. Hey, maybe we could. I was too embarrassed to say it outright, so I hinted with my eyes, hoping he'd catch on. But Tom just said, "Oh, I'm kind of tired tonight. Let's rain check," and quickly wrapped himself in his blanket. I felt a slight shock, having been turned down for the first time I ever initiated. Especially by my own husband. Even if he had to decline, there had to be a nicer way to say it, which made me doubt his feelings. Tom used to initiate when we first got married. I lay in bed, stifling tears, and fell asleep with a heavy sigh. Tom never initiated after that, and his homecoming times got later and later. However, he was relentless in furnishing our new home, and new furniture kept arriving, presumably ordered online. We're moving to our new place this Sunday. Tom seems to be enjoying online shopping by himself, as if to say we need to buy some new furniture by then. So, come this Sunday, we're finally moving to our new home. Both my parents and Tom's have sent messages asking, "Moving today, right?" Everyone seems to be really curious about our new house. On the day of the move, we decided that I would supervise the movers at our current home, and Tom would be at the new house to arrange the furniture being delivered. Well, I'll head over there first then. Okay, thanks. Tom left the house with the keys to our new place, looking happy. I couldn't help feeling excited about moving to our new home soon. When the movers arrived, they started loading the truck with our belongings. Watching them work, I thought about starting fresh in our new home and creating happy memories with Tom. We've loaded everything onto the truck, so we're heading to the new address now. Thank you, please do. After watching the movers get into the truck, I took a photo of the empty room for one last memory of our old place. Well, I should head to the new home too. It's just 20 minutes away from our current house. I grabbed my bag and headed outside. As I was walking out, my phone started vibrating. Wondering who it could be, I answered to find it was the movers. Sorry, but the new house is locked and we can't seem to get it open. We've also tried ringing the doorbell, but no one seems to be answering. What? I was surprised to hear this. Tom should be at the new house. It didn't make sense for him not to answer the doorbell. Maybe my husband is in the bathroom or something. Could you try ringing the doorbell again? As I asked, I could hear the doorbell ringing through the phone. No luck. It seems no one is answering, no matter how many times we ring. All right. I'll be there in about 15 minutes, please wait for me. It seems like ringing the doorbell again didn't change the situation, so I resigned myself to wait until I could get there. I wonder if he's at the store. I thought, hurrying toward our new home. Yet, at this moment, I had no idea of the shocking situation that awaited me. After riding the train for one stop, I walked briskly to our new place. I reached the house with the black walls, where the movers were waiting by the truck. Sorry for making you wait. I'll unlock the door now. Feeling apologetic, I pulled out the keys from my bag and opened the front door. There were no shoes of Tom's in the entryway. I figured he must have stepped out. But, to leave during the move, could something urgent have come up? Still, I wished he would have at least messaged me. Sighing, I directed the movers on where to place the furniture. That's all the items we have. Thank you for using our service. After the movers finished and left, I took a break and started unpacking the boxes. While deciding where to place everything, I remembered the basement. Maybe I should put some stuff down there for now. Things I was unsure about storing could be placed in the basement, which might help keep the living area tidy. With that thought, I carried a light box down to the basement. As I was about to open the basement door, I heard noises inside and paused. Stepping back, I pressed my ear against the door and heard the sound of someone moving around. Calming my breath, I cracked the door open just a bit. Light spilled into the hallway, and I caught my breath. I couldn't open the door wide enough to see inside, but the sounds let me guess the situation, sending shivers down my spine. In this basement, we definitely won't get caught. Really? Thank you for making such a room for me. I heard a young woman's voice that could easily end with a heart stamp and unmistakably, Tom's voice, leaving me speechless. What does this mean? Before I could even begin to sort out my confused thoughts, an indecent cry from the woman echoed down the hallway. No way. That can't be happening. I had a bad feeling for a while, but facing the reality was more shocking than I expected. I love you the most. Tom. Me too. Their voices whispering love sounded as if their union was fated. In the basement of this new house, how could I have imagined Tom with an unknown woman right in the middle of it? My hands trembling, I clenched them tightly in front of my chest, wondering what to do next. I quietly closed the basement door and locked it. Did you hear some noise just now? Must be your imagination. Or, it's the movers. I see. Tom and the woman seemed to have noticed the noise, but there was no sign they would stop their liaison to come out. Disgusted by their nerve to lock themselves in the basement for an affair on moving day, I felt a surge of anger. How could this happen? Tom and I were newlyweds, supposed to start a happy life in this house. I clenched my fists, overflowing with the desire to retaliate. I wanted to catch them in the act. The only thing to do was to act now. With that decision, I reached out to my parents, Tom's parents, and his aunt and uncle who lived nearby. When I mentioned hosting a housewarming party, they all arrived quickly. Especially since our parents knew we were moving today, they were planning to come anyway. Tom's relatives made the effort to come too, and I smirked to myself. Thank you all for coming. The place is still a mess with boxes everywhere, but please make yourselves comfortable. While spreading a cheerful smile, inside, I was burning with a vengeful spirit. What a lovely home. Really, I never thought Jolie could build such a house. All thanks to Mr. Smith, huh? That's not true. I haven't lifted a finger this time around. Yes. He took out a loan for it. We're truly grateful to have someone like Jolie joining our family. Our parents modestly complimented each other while checking out the living room, garden, and upstairs rooms. Didn't you say this house has something special about it, Tom's touch? Yes, that's right. Tom even bragged about it to us. The uncle and aunt seemed to know about Tom's significant attachment to the house. The conversation flowed so conveniently, I almost laughed. Yes, that's correct. Especially, Tom's pride is in the basement, so I'll show you now. I led our parents down the stairs to the basement. Tom and the unknown woman were probably still in the midst of it. Hearing the woman's voice still reaching my ears, knowing the truth. I took out the key from my pocket, inserted it into the basement door, and turned it to open. Here is Tom's pride and joy, the basement. Beyond the door I flung open lay exactly the scene I envisioned. Tom and a young woman, naked and embracing on the bed. What in the world is this? My father-in-law exclaimed in shock upon seeing his son in such a compromising position. Simultaneously, Tom and the woman noticed us and froze. Dad, Mom. Jolie, and the uncles and aunts too, why? What is the meaning of this? They screamed in panic, but those who truly wanted to scream were us, having discovered the affair in the basement of the new home. What are you two doing? My mother-in-law yelled, her face red with anger. My parents were so shocked they couldn't even speak. This is, not what it looks like. Let me explain. Tom tried to defend himself, but in this situation, any words sounded like poor excuses, and he couldn't continue. Hold on a second. Aren't you Harris? My father-in-law suddenly addressed the woman. Harris, as she was called, jolted, looking terrified as if she had seen a ghost. And quickly covered herself with a blanket. But once my father-in-law recognized her, his face turned pale rapidly. Father-in-law, do you know this woman, Harris? I couldn't help but ask my father-in-law. He nodded with a trembling voice, yes. She's a new employee at our company. What? Thoughts raced through my mind. A new employee would be around 22 if she graduated from college or about 18 if she finished high school. Tom started talking about building this house around May this year. At that time, he repeatedly expressed his desire to have a basement. And he even ordered large storage units and a bed, seemingly excited. I thought it was just his passion for our home. But piecing together what my father-in-law just said tells a different story. Could it be you met this woman in April and everything happened so quickly? Was the basement created to sneak her in secretly? And the furniture and bed were for your affairs? I confronted Tom with my deductions. No, it's not like that. The basement is for my hobbies. I thought we could use it for storage. The furniture, too, was meant for us to use together, right? Listening to Tom's words fade away, I felt my love for him cooling. A basement just for storage? I believed in your dedication to our home at first, but now, seeing this, I can't trust a word you say. Tom mumbled in response. I had looked forward to starting a new life in this house. But now, this betrayal doubled my shock. Harris, was it? You really thought it was okay to have an affair with a man 10 years older than you? My anger now turned towards the woman named Harris. I didn't know. I had no idea Tom was married. She said uncertainly, but my father-in-law's "that's impossible" made her gasp in fear. Everyone in the company knows Tom is married. We even announced it in the company newsletter recently. You might want to claim ignorance because you're new, but seeing this big house and still claiming you didn't know is a weak excuse, isn't it? Faced with my father-in-law's rebuttal, Harris stumbled over her words. In this situation, naked and caught in the act in the basement, no excuse could possibly matter anymore. Harris really didn't know. It's all my fault. Please don't blame her. Tom tried to defend Harris, his voice fierce. Even now, I couldn't believe his nerve to protect Harris. At this moment, I am the one who is most hurt. Tom should be protecting his wife, not his mistress, Harris. My in-laws, my parents, and I all thought the same, furrowing our brows in unison at Tom's defense of Harris. Seeing everyone's reaction, Tom finally seemed to realize no one was on their side, and he started trembling. Harris also voiced her anxiety. What's going to happen now? If she was so worried, she shouldn't have had an affair in the first place. It's too late now. So, what's going to happen to us? If Jolie is willing, let's start over. It was just a momentary lapse. I never thought a younger woman could seriously fall for me. It was all just a game. Come on, let's make up. Tom's proposal left us all speechless. The woman next to him, feeling betrayed, couldn't hide her surprise. I scoffed at Tom, who was desperately changing his stance as if begging for his life. Who in the world would think about reconciling with their husband in this situation? I was astounded by Tom's naivety. Really? Which mouth of yours is speaking now? How about my feelings, thinking we would have a happy life in this big new house starting today? You think saying it was a momentary lapse makes everything okay? Isn't that disrespectful to both me and her? Weren't you prepared to lose everything when you decided to cheat? Or not? Well, I was immature. Tom was on the verge of collapse under my relentless questioning. I was appalled by his lack of seriousness. My father-in-law also seemed disgusted by Tom's frivolous attitude. Hey! Listening to this, what's with your half-hearted attitude? First, you owe Jolie an apology. Not even doing that, you think you're the only one who deserves forgiveness? I didn't raise my son to be such a disgraceful man. Given the circumstances, you are disowned from the position of the next president. And Harris, you are fired from our company as of today. My father-in-law's furious voice echoed in the small basement. At that moment, Tom and the woman's eyes widened in shock. Wait, disowned? Isn't that going too far? Dad, please forgive me, I'll do anything. I'll take on any job you hate. Just don't disown me. And me too, please. I finally got into a good company as a new grad, and if I'm fired for this, what will I tell my parents and relatives? I'm truly sorry for everything. I don't mind being transferred to a different department. Please, just don't fire me. Both of them were prostrating on the bed, begging my father-in-law for forgiveness. However, looking at my father-in-law's face, it was clear that their apologies fell on deaf ears, his expression cold and unmoved. After a moment of contemplation, my father-in-law took a deep breath. "You too, apologizing to the wrong person. What's the use of apologizing to me? You should be apologizing to Jolie. Not even knowing who to apologize to, you're unfit to take over Smith Trading." Got it. My father-in-law's final blow hit Tom and the woman hard. The two screamed in horror and clung to each other. "You understand now, right? Get out of this house immediately." "Come on, Jolie, forgive me. Look, I'm apologizing, see?" "I'm sorry too. Let's just forget this ever happened." Tom and Harris pleaded with me as if this was their last hope. But I glared at them and yelled, "Don't underestimate me. Get out now." With my final blow, the two jumped and ran out of the house. Those of us left exchanged looks and breathed heavily. My in-laws kept bowing to my parents and me. It's good these parents are decent people. Though my anger at Tom hadn't subsided, I had already resolved to live a life without him from this point on. We divorced, and I successfully got a substantial settlement from Tom. Being the son of a wealthy man, Tom himself didn't have the means to pay the alimony in one lump sum. He would have to pay off the debt over time. My father-in-law, true to his word, fired Tom and Harris and disowned Tom from the Smith family. Tom resisted till the end, but my father-in-law dismissed him, saying, "I cannot entrust Smith Trading to someone like you. Instead, one of my father-in-law's competent subordinates is likely to take over the company." I might have been a bit lenient because he's my son, but he just wasn't cut out to be a president. My father-in-law analyzed calmly, truly the demeanor of a major company's CEO. The new house Tom and I bought became his property as I moved out. Originally, the deed was in Tom's name anyway, so that was always the plan. I had only bad memories of that house, so I would have been troubled if he hadn't taken it. Now, Tom has to repay the mortgage on that new house, and without a job, he must be despairing over how to make the payments. Harris, it seems, ran off after realizing Tom was no longer going to be the next president of Smith Trading. In the end, she was only after Tom's money. Otherwise, she wouldn't have had an affair with Tom, who was 10 years older. Of course, I demanded a hefty sum in damages from her as well. Tom, having lost his job, will likely face a grim future figuring out how to repay the alimony debt. The future awaiting her seems quite bleak as well. Tom has lost a wife, a mistress, the title of the next president, and is left only with debt. I don't feel sorry for him at all. All of this was the result of Tom's own doing. Without his father's support, how is he going to recover? I do hope he manages to pull himself together, but I also wish he never appears in front of me again. I've moved to a rental apartment for a fresh start on my own. As a single person, a rental apartment is more than enough. I've arranged my favorite furniture and am now satisfied with this comfortable life. If I ever decide to marry someone again, we'll discuss and agree on a living situation that makes both of us happy. That's the promise I've made to myself.